all clinical studies on herbal extracts, all of them on herbs, whether it's Panax ginseng, whether it's echinacea, whether it's resveratrol, whether it's St. John's wort, never do it on the herb powder, ever. It's always done on the extract. They use the extract, not the powder. Now, you might ask, what's the difference between the two? I mean, is there such a big difference? Well, firstly, let me tell you that a herb powder normally costs you 20 or 30 rand a kilogram as a manufacturer, but a herb extract normally costs you anything up to 2,000 rand a kilogram, but typically is sitting around 600 rand a kilogram as a manufacturer. What's the difference? Well, the best way to describe the difference between a herb powder and a herb extract is if you can imagine that I have a tea bag here filled with tea leaves. Those tea leaves are dry, aren't they? They're basically herb powder. They're dry tea leaves. They're dry tea herb. And filling that sack of tea bags is probably, if you were to weigh it, give or take, probably 5 grams of powder, of tea leaves. Now, if I take those tea leaves and I put them into a cup of boiling water, and I boil that water maybe for 5 minutes, and really I boil all the goodness out of that tea bag, and I squeeze that tea bag off well, what have I now got left? And I take it out. What have I now got left in that tea bag in terms of goodness? Nothing. I've just got the leftover wood, the leftover fiber, the substance that occupies most of the weight but has no goodness left inside it. All the goodness is now inside that cup of water. And if I evaporate off that water in the sun or wherever, after all the water's been evaporated and I let it really dry out, I will probably have lining the cup, the sides and the bottom, maybe a light brown resin. Not so. And if I scrape that off with a spatula all the way down, the end I will get at the bottom a little heap of powder at the bottom of that cup. And that little heap of powder might weigh, let's say, half a gram. Half a gram, remember, is 500 milligrams. Half a gram equals 500 milligrams. That little amount might be 500 milligrams. But yet, although it's half a gram compared to the original 5 grams, although it's 10 times smaller, how many times does half go into 5? 10. Although it's 10 times smaller, it actually contains all the goodness that was inside that tea bag to start with, not so. Now, if I take a capsule which holds 500 milligrams, if I take a capsule which holds 500 milligrams, because a capsule can't hold more than that, unless you've got a very dense substance, or unless you've got a very big capsule. But capsules hold roughly 500 milligrams. If I take that capsule, and remember, if I want to put less into a capsule, I always can. I can just then fill it up with calcium carbonate or whatever other filler, in our case, plant fiber. But let's say I fill that capsule up, 500 milligrams of that tea extract. And I put that capsule over there. And then I take another capsule. Remember, capsule can only hold 500 milligrams. And I take out of the original tea bag, the original or another tea bag, I take 500 milligrams of that herb, of that tea leaf, out of the 5 grams. I've now got 500 milligrams of the tea leaves in the capsule. Although in both cases I've got a 500 milligram capsule, the same amount, and in both cases I've got tea, herb. In the one case I've got tea herb powder, and the other one I've got tea extract powder. And although they're both 500 milligrams, in reality, if I take a capsule of that extract, I am getting a 10 times higher dose than if I take the same 500 milligram dose of the tea herb powder. Does that make sense? Okay, now, if the studies show that 300 milligrams of St. John's wort extract is effective for mild to moderate depression, you will not get a benefit on 300 milligrams 3 times a day of St. John's wort herb powder for depression. But you've got to really know what you're looking for, because in both cases you'll see St. John's wort, and in both cases it'll be 300 milligrams. But in the one case it's the powder, and in the one case it's the extract. Why use the extract? Because that's what the studies use. And normally there are a number of ways of explaining extracts, but oftentimes if you see like a 10 to 1, have you ever seen that, like St. John's wort or echinacea, 10 to 1? You've gone from 5 grams to half a gram. How many times have you concentrated it up? 10-fold. That would be shown as a 10 to 1. If it was a 5-fold increase, a 5 to 1. 50-fold increase, 50 to 1. And then you get very fancy extracts, which are called standardized extracts. Means once you've extracted it, you will then go in and look for certain marker chemicals to make sure that you've got the extraction concentration process right. Because remember, one thing you might have picked up, in the case of the water, in the case of the tea, I was putting it into boiling water, which means water will only dissolve the water-soluble parts of the tea leaves. If I've got a grease mark on this table, I can rub it off with alcohol, but I can't rub it off maybe with water. It'll stay on the table, not so. If I have fat-soluble parts inside those tea leaves, things like flavonols or sterols, they will not be absorbed in the hot water. And actually, when I take it out, they will still be inside the tea leaves. So you need to make sure you get the alcohol, the solvents right, that you use alcohol, ethanol. Yes, you're going to evaporate it all off at the end, but at least you're going to get the full complement being dissolved. And to verify that, you go in and you check that there's examples of all the different things or of a few of the different things. And that's called a standardized extract. So you'll go in and you'll see that it's St. John's wort has got 3% hyperforin or 0.3% hypericin. And as soon as you start seeing 3% and you start seeing a chemical, it's not really a chemical, but a chemical-sounding word, it's an ingredient inside there, then you know it's the best type of extract, a standardized extract. So for rhodiola rosea, for example, we check for 2 active ingredients. We check to make sure that it's got rosavin and salidroside, because they are water-soluble and fat-soluble. You need to have both of them in your extract. Otherwise, you've got the extraction procedure wrong. And we need to have it at 3%, because that shows that it's been concentrated up enough. So, look, it's getting a little technical, but just to explain, that's one of the reasons why we are a bit more expensive. Sometimes a lot more expensive, sometimes a bit more expensive.